live. I do believe that we are indeed live. Let's quickly check the audio, make sure everything's good. Yes, we are live. Good. Woohoo! So, good night, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well in this pre-Halloween live stream. And I see that Scott's there in the chat. Scott, let me know if you're already getting some good PTSD flashbacks just from seeing this little bit right here. So for those of you who don't know, this right here is The Catch of Vampires, quite possibly one of the worst movies ever made. At the same time, I stand by this. This movie is also the inspiration for Twilight. Everything that is in the Twilight series is in this movie. I say that everything that you will see in this movie, if you watch it, is in Twilight. Even down to the bland protagonist girl's name, Bella. No, I am not kidding. with vegetarian vampires, and we got the Valturi from Twilight. You have like the weird Council of Dracula in this one. Oh my gosh, it is it's something else. So we got Hannah here, we got ISO. Good to see you guys. Hope that you're having a good evening. And I do apologize for getting started a little bit late. I thought I was all good to go, and then the afternoon happened and everything went downhill real fast. So if you suddenly hear any weird clacking on my end, that's because I'm trying to eat, because I have not had the chance to eat today. Yay. Hey, Arts is here. Good to see you, Arts. The bats are getting an icy. Yes, actually, and that is, I kid you not, that is part of the movie, that the bats get jiggy with it at one point. What's this thing called? This is called The Catch of Vampires, and it's narrated by Mistress of the Night herself, Elvira. And this was billed in America as a kids movie. I don't understand. And there's Bella right there. TV account. Good to have you here. This is one character who is not to be found in Twilight. Thank goodness. This is the Shakespearean uncle. And no, this isn't in Forks. This is in Hungary, where all of this is going down. All right. It's not the birds and the bees, it's the bats and the belfry. Yes. Come, little one. You are now 14 years old. It is time that I tell you about the bats and the belfry. Yes, I just did that. All right. So let's see how many other people come on in. Say, for tonight, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing a lesson on the use of Halloween as a setting, as a means of telling your story, as an element of your story. And then if I get the chance, I'll then pull up elements of I'll pull up clips from other movies or whatnot. Again, I intended to be absolutely prepared, and then the afternoon happened. Things started going down. I got kicked out of StreamYard, and just the plane came down crashing. So if it feels a little bit wonky tonight, that's because everything went to hell in a handbasket just before the stream. Well, actually, hours before the stream, and I just had no control over it. So, yay for me. And like I said, if you hear any clacking, that's me eating because I haven't eaten today. So, let's move away from the nightmare fuel and hop onto our main. I'll hop on over here to the main topic, which is Halloween in writing. So, for those of you who may have been around for my breakdown of Christmas, Scott, how dare you distract me with that gif? But it's perfect. So for those of you who were around for the Christmas lesson almost a year ago now, I've talked about how Christmas is something that should actually be used. Like, don't just simply have it as like, hey, guess what? Christmas time in the story. Woohoo. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. And like never mention again, because it's underutilizing something that could potentially be really, really good for your story. And I have a slight bone to pick with so many Hallmark Christmas movies. There should be a whole line of Hallmark Halloween movies. Scott, let's get on that. But so many Christmas Hallmark movies, you could take the Christmas out of the movie and it would not make a single bit of difference to how the story plays out. It's just simply the window dressing. Yeah, Roblox has the exact same idea. Hallmark. Well, did someone say Hallmark? Yeah, I mean, and again, like, is that necessary? Is this really like a sin to not further incorporate Christmas, or in this case, Halloween, into your story? Should you have it in there? No, I won't hate your story because you don't use it, but rather it's an opportunity that is missed. And as writers, we want to be able to capitalize on everything that's at our disposal in order to make the best story possible, or at least know that it's a tool that we can use. And if you're going to use Halloween, then by all means, please, what the hey? Then by all means, please use Halloween correctly. Scott says there are a few Hallmark Halloween movies, but Christmas is the majority. Arts. Chris side sinking to the worn out sofa, Halloween lanterns aglow around them. Tori was gone for the night, nothing was on. Thoughts of going to bed were bubbling in the kid's head when a knock sounded at the door. You know, Arts, I gotta pull up the little Halloween video that was done by someone a while back. That was a great one for Chris and Susie. So, window dressing versus the real deal. This is already my rant just now, but in slide formats. If you're going to use any kind of holiday, actually think about what you can do with that holiday to help facilitate what's happening within the plot or with the characters. For instance, let's take a Christmas movie, for example. The movie Home Alone is great. And one of the things that makes Home Alone actually work as a story is that the McAllisters are all going on Christmas vacation. And so the whole family is there. We're escaping Chicago or wherever they're at, that we're going to escape from all the cold. And in their frantic state to make it to the airport on time for their Christmas vacation, they end up abandoning Kevin at home. And that's one of the things also lets the Wet Bandits, Harry and Marv, do what they're doing, is that most people have already left for vacation. So you have all of these rich homes which are empty for Christmas, and they're plumb for the picking. So and so Christmas helps to facilitate a lot of what's happening within the plot. And you also get a lot of great Christmassy vibes that are added on into it. And there are some great Halloween movies that do also capitalize on the Halloween spirit or the Halloween setting. Adam Sandler's Huey's Halloween on Netflix is great because you can have a murder mystery story all on its own, but because Adam Sandler utilizes Halloween so well in that movie, if you took the Halloween element out of it, so many of the jokes would vanish and it wouldn't be as funny of a movie. And so that's a movie that uses the setting of Halloween really, really well. So if you want to make Halloween a part of your story, then I suggest looking into how Halloween, or really any other holiday, can really help to facilitate the plot. And Scott can back me up on this one because this is, I think, is a really great example. If you watch the anime Summertime Rendering, there is a festival that is about to be celebrated at the little island village where the main character has got to come back when one of his best friends dies. He's going to her funeral, and people ask, "Hey, are you going to stick around for the festival?" And the festival ends up being a very important part of the overall plot. I'm not going to explain how that ends up being the case because those are some major spoilers. But this holiday for this little village ends up becoming essential, and it's not just to help explain why everyone else is also in town for this weekend. And so definitely utilize any sort of holiday. Now then, in order for us, I believe, to really use Halloween correctly and not just simply have it as background noise or as window dressing or as just some slight flavoring, we really have to dive into what Halloween is. And one of the things that comes out of this, I believe, is that as you get to know Halloween, many, many more really cool ideas can come to you of like, wait a second, like what if I actually did this? I know that ISO said this like a month ago that he's not really interested in a Halloween story, but like there's some interesting stories that can come out of it. It's an interesting thing. Well, when you dive into the history of Halloween, this can spark so much creativity. While doing research for this, I thought to myself of like a half a dozen different stories that would work well using Halloween without even needing a modern Halloween setting. So I hope that you guys, as we go through this, get some good inspiration and not just a history lesson. History's cool, but hopefully this helps to inspire you to think about what you yourself might want to do with other stories, or maybe this gets the gears rolling for another brand new tale. As Scott says, that anime messes with your mind. It's a dense piece of work. You have been warned. Oh, yes. Oh, Summertime Rendering's got so much going on. It is a fantastic, beautifully written show, but it's not something to watch lightly. Yes, and that's communicated to you in the first 2 episodes. Woo-wee. Art says, I could see Chris researching Halloween with Caddy. They're both into occult stuff. And don't forget Noelle in that. Yeah, I'm sorry, eating. All right, so what is Halloween? Halloween, when we go way back, over 2,000 years, Halloween is an ancient Celtic festival called, and no, I'm not mispronouncing it. I know that I spelt this Samhain. It's pronounced Samhain. Yes, it's weird. I get it. But Samhain should be pronounced Samhain. That's just the way it is. So this festival, Samhain, or we can just say Samhain, but Samhain, this festival served several major purposes. One of these was to celebrate the harvest. But the other big reason was to reconnect with people's ancestors. And this is where things get really, really cool. And if you start looking into other ancient cultures, you can see some really neat similarities here between what the Celts and the Irish did and what other people all around the world have believed as well. So their belief is that as fall transitions towards winter, at this time of the solstice, or actually, not the solstice, the equinox. At the time of the equinox, the fall equinox, so it's the third quarter of the way through the year, the worlds of the living and the dead meet. And specifically at twilight, as night and day meet at the time that winter begins taking over fall, that is the perfect time for all different worlds to collide. The worlds of the living, the worlds of the dead, the worlds of the spirits, the worlds of the gods all come together. And so you would then, with your bountiful harvest, lay out a fantastic feast, not only for the village, but for your ancestors to also be a part of. So everyone comes together. But because this is a night where all spirits and gods and monsters can come out to play, you have to protect yourself because you don't know if someone's going to pretend to be one of your ancestors but is really a ghoul, or maybe it seems like a benevolent deer, but really it's some big monster hiding in sheep's clothing, or hiding in this case in deer's clothing. So in order to protect yourself, the people would dress themselves up as animals or as other creatures and then celebrate the night. So that way they would be protected just in case any other ghouls or monsters or spirits came waltzing through the party. And that's well enough depicted here in the image at the bottom of the slide. So this right here is ultimately the real origin of Halloween. Now, there's other things that we believe were attached to this particular festival, but I think some of the biggest things to take away from this is that everyone gets together, you have a big bonfire, it's a time of feasting, a time of plenty, you dress up, monsters and spirits are involved, it's a time for the living and the dead to mesh. And those are the most important things for us in this particular context to take out of Halloween. If you want to write a story based in like a really old ancient Halloween, go do your research, but it's really, really hard to find stuff. And that's in part because of the persecution that the Celts and later the Irish went through. And something to appreciate with Halloween is that Halloween is a festival, it is a holiday, is a celebration that has survived almost 2,500 years of people trying to stamp it out. So the Romans tried to squash this bit of culture, which is unique for the Romans because the Romans normally did not destroy the cultures that they conquered. They wanted to incorporate them into the empire. These examples of when they decided to just screw it, obliterate it, some of them might intrigue you, some of them might surprise you. One of the first is Carthage. They despised Carthage, and so they tried to obliterate everything of Carthaginian culture out of existence. We know almost nothing about Carthage other than what the Romans tell us because of how much the Romans destroyed. Another example, and this might be surprising to people who think that it's like, hey, the Romans love the Greeks. The Romans wiped out nearly every Greek cult. And this is interesting because the Greeks told the Romans that they could not join their cults, their special circles of God worship, because the Romans were Roman, they weren't Greek. And so the Romans put almost every single Greek cult to the sword because they were upset that they were not allowed to participate. And then when it comes to the Celts gave the Romans such grief across so many wars. They're like, screw it. Kill them all. Just get rid of them. We don't want anything to do with them. And that's another reason why it's actually really hard to find good concrete evidence about what the Celts actually did. Because of the Romans. So later, it wasn't just the Romans. The Romans got wiped out by the Germans. You have the rise of the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church did not like these Celtic havens in Ireland and in Scotland and really attempt to stamp them out. Ireland kind of became the last bastion of Celtic rituals, Celtic worship, and Celtic language and culture. And it's just one of the many reasons why, historically speaking, everyone has hated the Irish. There are few people in this world, historically, who are more hated than the Irish. They have been hated since the Roman Empire. So, give it to the Irish for that. There's very few other civilizations in world history that can claim something like that. Not even many African cultures, believe it or not. Roblox is down. Funny how people took this long-standing tradition and added toilet paper to it because it totally makes sense. Talking about scary rituals and raising the dead. Roblox, hold on to your horses. Put a pin in that because we're going to talk about that. That's a part of this history lesson. So, Halloween or Samhain ended up being practiced way more in private to avoid the wrath of especially the Catholic Church, as the Catholic Church came to dominate the British Isles. Now then, crazy bonfires. So the tradition changed. When you have to celebrate in hiding, you can't have these big, fantastic feasts anymore because people are going to know when you have these. So going out into the woods for a crazy bonfire, Samhain, or as it became Halloween, because Christians tried to blend it into All Hallows Eve, or the Saints' Day, one of the Saints' days, things just started taking on a whole new kind of view. And Christianity, in an attempt to wipe this out, really began to vilify the history and the practice of Samhain. And so this goes on for centuries until the Irish take their bonfire practices with them on over to the Americas, specifically to the United States. And this is where things get really funny, at least in my opinion. So, if and I want real quick right here, I want to see in the chat who here knows anything about the Gilded Age. I want to see in the chat who actually knows what the Gilded Age is. And that's also going to give me a chance to quickly take another bite of food. Does anyone here in chat know about the Gilded Age? Good food. Scott says, I love how Halloween brings out a lot of the most interesting and sometimes dark practices of human history and brings it to light. Yes. I will make it. It was a shite period. Oh, yes, it was. TV count. There's interesting lore about everything, even in real life. Amen. ISO says, some of it, not enough to recite. Okay. Hold on a sec here. Let me swallow another bite. Again, for the people just showing up, I haven't eaten yet today, so I'm finally getting to eat. Scott says, just watched a really long video on how all the superstitions behind how they would bury expected vampires throughout history. Eye-opening stuff. Scott, I just saw that pop up in my recommendations today. I was going to give it a watch, but I didn't have the time to do it. So I'm going to check that out. I know it's I know that's used a lot in romantic-y stuff, just not in a good way. Honestly, watching the Let's Celebrate Murder Drones video along this. Hey, all okay. Which, real quick, on the topic of murder drones, I've got the retrospective in the works. I am hoping I can release it tomorrow. That will be one of my goals for tomorrow. All right. So, oh no. Darn you, cat. My cat just knocked over my water. Anyway, we're moving on here. What a day it's been for me. That's some disturbing bonfire lore. Amen. Now then, so let's talk real quick about the Gilded Age, because in order to understand why the teenagers are going to do some of the stuff that they do here on the slide, you have to understand that the Gilded Age sucked for everyone. The only people who were kind of doing somewhat good during the Gilded Age were the 1%ers, the actual 1%ers of that time. For everyone else, they're dealing with horrific pollution. If you think pollution is bad, now think clouds of acidic smog that came down out of the clouds during the night and would blanket entire cities and kill people in their sleep. What would happen in a lot of larger cities is that during the day, people who were conscientious of this idea that maybe we shouldn't have corpses out would take time really early in the morning before people start going to work to drag the bodies out of the street, and then put them into places for people to pick up later on. So you've got stuff like that going on. As well as that, the streets were literally paved in crap. animal and human fecal matter. It was nasty. Living conditions were awful. When people would go to buy meat, you wouldn't know if that meat was animal meat, house pet meat, or potentially even human flesh, because sometimes human body parts got mixed up in the bits. It was nasty. People got their children addicted to cocaine as a means of trying to deal with coughing. So cough syrup had a blend of cocaine in it. Back in the Gilded Age. Nasty, nasty stuff. And I'm just barely scratching the surface here. And as far as teenagers went, if you were a teenager who wasn't a part of a wealthy family or a well-connected family, chances are you were sent to work almost to death in factories, in really horrible factory conditions. And especially if you were smaller, oh, you had the worst of it. You would be stuffed into machines while the machines are running to fix the machines. Children would get shredded like confetti in some of these machines in larger factories, or get mixed in with the meat, or get burned alive by molten ore. Stuff like this is going on. It's a daily occurrence during the American Gilded Age. And it's not just in America, but this was something that was also happening over in the UK and into lesser extents in France and Germany. And the Irish were just getting the absolute worst of it. So Irish immigrants coming to America looking for a better life and getting taken advantage of, and everyone hates them because, hey, here's another really fun, disturbing history fact. The Irish, for most of human history, some of the pastiest people on the planet, were not considered white. They were not white. They were Irish, and therefore they were evil and must be mistreated. I am not kidding. That's some dark American history right there. So when you have people living in these conditions, the cities are awful, the work is awful, you don't have any real medicine, no real education. Life just sucks. People need a break. And Halloween became an unintentional consequence of this, because teenagers who hear this from the Irish and from their Irish and from little Irish kids that they would fight in the streets with, or at least become friends with, maybe, would be like, you know what? This sounds great. Okay, when Halloween comes around, we are having a bonfire. And so on Halloween nights, the teenagers would go out into the streets. If they could make it into the woods, they would go and have a real romp in the woods. Imagine everything that could happen there. But in the cities where there was no chance to escape and get to the woods, if we're going to have a bonfire and dance, we're going to have a bonfire and dance. And so these angry, disgruntled teens would go and attack people's houses and rip apart people's houses and have bonfires in the streets and then celebrate Halloween. Oh, yeah. This is early American Halloween right here. Mimic arrived. Hey, Mimic, great to have you here. Another day, another educational live stream from Professor Lars. Yes. I do have my master's degree, so I can claim that. Hannah says, what in the world? Wow, yikes. History is both very interesting, enlightening, and also disgusting. Love it. The unintended cannibals. That's effed up. Oh, yeah. Amen to all that. So, around the turn of the century, so as America begins coming out of the Gilded Age and goes into what we call the Progressive Era, where finally, thanks to presidents like Teddy Roosevelt, who's like, this just sucks. Like, this is not okay. People need to actually have dignity. So there was a push to change up America and everything. And during this time, people are like, how do we deal with Halloween? Because now at this point, the worst thing imaginable had happened. A bunch of teenagers for basically now 2 generations love these pagan practices. Not in my good Christian America! And not only that, but they're Irish. Not in my good Anglo-Saxon America! So, Halloween was feared because you had wild children and teens running around, destroying property, having bonfires in the streets, practicing pagan rites, at least as far as they saw. And it's inspired by those hated Irish. And what makes this even funnier, the police could do nothing about it because at this point in American history, there weren't enough policemen hired for almost any city or town. You would have a very small force that was supposed to deal with only the worst of crimes. And then when Halloween rolls around, you have hundreds, if not thousands, of teenagers taking to the streets in costume, destroying property and having bonfires. Wherever the police actually tried to stop them, the police would get overrun by teenagers. And just let that paint a picture in your mind right there of just cops coming in there. They got their batons and their pistols ready, but there's only like a dozen of them, and there's 100+ teenagers who are stark raving mad. Cops are going to get mowed down, and they got mowed down. So cops didn't actually do anything to stop this. And so it was left to the communities to figure out what on earth they were going to do to rein in Halloween. And so this actually then brings about the birth of trick-or-treating. So in an effort to stop all of this, community leaders across America, independent of each other, but then they started communicating and made this actually a real deal, came up with a grand plan. Bribe the kids with candy. Now, because this is coming out of the Gilded Age, where you have a lot of really poor people, a lot of people really downtrodden, and you've got the 1%ers, it was normally the 1%ers who had to really fear about these kids coming to attack them. And so it's like, hey, you guys have the money, so just make candy or make cakes or something. And so the households, both rich and poor, would start making candies or cakes or something to give to the teenagers to bribe them to go away. And so you'd have gangs of teenagers coming to start their Halloween bonfires. They come in, the families would be like, here's a bunch of cake. Please take the cake and don't burn down my house. And the teenagers would be like, sweet cake. Okay, you're cool. To the neighbor's house. And then if the neighbors did not have anything to give them, their house would be taken apart to be used as fuel for the bonfire. And so trick or treat actually started out more as a threat than anything else, because eventually what it meant was when you said trick or treat, it was, are you going to give me a treat or am I going to burn down your house? And so that, as insane as this sounds, this is where trick-or-treating comes from. Roving bands of costumed teenagers wanting to have a bonfire, collecting basically protection money, protection cake and protection candy, protection sweets and fruits from people, so that way they wouldn't destroy their property. And just they would go through the neighborhood, and anyone who didn't have stuff for them, they would attack their house. Now then, this was a multi-layered plan, because part of it was to get the teenagers used to celebrating Halloween in this fashion. So now that you have teenagers going around from place to place collecting sweets, and now you have basically given teens tunnel vision, get the candy, don't attack the house. Now, community leaders encouraged parents with small children to also get in on the fun. Dress up your kids, go outside, don't fear those teenagers. So long as people give them candy and cake, they won't burn down people's houses. And basically what this did was it got a bunch of adults now who were terrified of these teenagers to go trick-or-treating with their little kids. And now that the teenagers are surrounded by all of these adults, they're not going to start a fight. They're not going to try to burn down someone's house. They're not going to start a bonfire because they're surrounded by a bunch of adults now. Oh, the fun got taken out of it. Fine, just give me my candy and I'll go. And this is then where stuff like TPing the house and whatnot actually then starts becoming a real thing. Because since teenagers begin to think like, oh my gosh, we can't burn down the person's house if they don't give us candy because there's all these adults about, And these dumb adults who are not giving us candy know that we can't attack their house. Well, we're going to play a trick on them. You know what we're going to do? If we can't burn down their house, we're going to do something else to it. We're going to take eggs. We're going to egg their house. We're going to take a dump in their front yard. We're going to use we're going to throw toilet paper everywhere. We're going to set a little fire on their porch and see how they like it. It's not going to burn down their house. It's going to make them really angry. Ha! You guys didn't give us candy? You'll get worse next year. Give us candy next time. All right, we're off to the neighbors. And there you have it. Halloween. Modern day Halloween. This is how we get there. Yes, bring out the eggs and the tissues. And says, makes sense. Frankly, though, for being honest, candy or no candy, if it ain't going to stop some of these rambunctious kids and teens from causing havoc everywhere. Yeah. And I mean, you've got those kids who are just out really for the vandalism and for the pure joy of escape. And that's pretty stupid for those teens. Yes, it is. And now then here's the thing is that and why we don't actually really practice such a violent Halloween anymore comes around to the fact that Teddy Roosevelt and his contemporaries actually did the job that they were supposed to do. They really turned America around and helped to correct a lot of problems. Not all of the problems, mind you, but enough problems. And eventually with kids then being ordered to actually be in school, get an education. Education taught kids, hey, you should go get a job. The way to freedom is with work and with money. These are things you got to do. And then at school, you make friends. With your friends, you make plans to do other things. And so in so many ways, violent Halloween was tempered by the fact that the horrible living conditions in the United States that had given rise to the violent Halloween practices at the turn of the century, that was gone. So as a result, there was no real need to be a part of that anymore. And since teens were no longer, after a few decades, really that oppressed, other than, I'm angsty and no one understands me. Beyond that, the teenagers didn't really have a reason to cut loose on one crazy night and go to town on the town. So instead, Halloween just became a fun thing to do. And when you lose that edginess and that angsty appeal to Halloween, it's also one of the things that leads to many teenagers after a while saying, hey, you know what? Halloween is fun and all, but I'm really not going to get that into it. I'll just get some candy. I'll hang out with friends, go to a party. I'm not going to do trick-or-treating. That's a kid's thing. Never mind the fact that once upon a time, trick-or-treating was about gangs of teens going around demanding protection candy, or otherwise they would attack a house. Hannah says, wait, this happened in Japan as well. Teens did something stupid too. Oh, teens have done stupid things in gangs all over the world at many different times. Halloween is just unique because of the crazy melting pot of culture and the incredibleness that the Irish have managed to preserve a festival from over 2,000 years before. Granted, again, it's not what it once was. It still isn't. But we have Halloween thanks to a really ancient tradition, more ancient than Christmas, more ancient than modern Easter, or even ancient Easter in many cases. Halloween can actually in many ways trace itself back in its core themes to before most other holidays that we celebrate today. Teenagers are freaking stupid. Me, 17 years old. I know two people who are cosplaying as V this Halloween. That's awesome. I love that. I really one of these days want to try doing a cosplay of N. I would love to do that. I actually saw someone trying to do a good cosplay of a murder drone a little while back. I was pretty impressed. It's a lot of work to get those wings and tail right. Now then, so what? So I've just given you guys a fun history lesson. You can share that around the dinner table or tell your friends, hey, maybe we should do bonfires this year for Halloween. Go to town on the town, just like Mr. Jensen said we should. But besides it being just a fun history lesson, again, why does this matter? The reason why it matters is because when you understand Halloween, it really begins to reveal a lot. And I'll have a little more discussions about that here in a moment. But for your own creativity, for how you might want to utilize Halloween in a story. Again, so many people just use Halloween kind of as a backdrop because that's all that they understand. Most people have never really learned the history of Halloween. In fact, the history of Halloween was a really stinking hard thing for historians to find because of how well buried it was under so much prejudice and under so much time. But the more that we come to understand about Halloween, you realize it's not about the candies and the dressing up, but it's about why. Why do you dress up? Why do you go about and do this? And as you dive into the deeper themes of Halloween, you begin to see that there's this theme of the world of the living and the dead, which again is global. Most ancient cultures that still exist today have old stories of the time that the living and the dead can mingle, and many of them place them at the same time as Halloween, or at least in that fall period. And so Halloween is actually a little bit more universal than you'd think. And there's a reason why there's multiple cultures now in countries that feel more comfortable accepting Halloween, because there's something about it that kind of resonates with them. Then there's the dressing up. So many people like to dress up. And it's not just simply dressing up for the sake of dressing up, but there's a sense of empowerment, of safety, of accessibility, of being able to merge into another world when you dress up, which again is something that is actually nowadays far more common, far more universal than at previous times that we might have accepted or anticipated. And then again, who just doesn't love good old candy and cake? Or candied apples and the likes. Say right here, Mega says, I initially have something planned for Halloween, but I'm going to post it on a Dia de los Muertos. Okay. Oh, cool. On the Day of the Dead. All right. So Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead. Good fun. Mimic, and it came in the 2020s decade with the trunk or treating era. Scott, ew, trunk or treat. Hey, I'm going to a trunk or treat tomorrow night. Definitely trunk or treat. Trunk or treat is nowhere near as fun as going legit trick or treating, which, weirdly enough, I got contacted by an old coworker of mine who's asking, hey, are you going to come trick or treating like in my area? Her area of town goes wild for Halloween. Like other neighborhoods go wild for Christmas, getting everything nice and cool for Christmas. This neighborhood goes bonkers for Halloween. I'll see if I can get some pictures of that and share that later on with people here on YouTube, because it is fun. I've been there just walking about once before, and holy cow, it was really, really cool. Now then. So you guys have gotten yourselves the history of Halloween, but there are a few other things that I would still actually point out in terms of where Halloween brings things together. So, for instance, Irish, the old Irish or Celtic Samhain would never have had pumpkins. And again, as a former history teacher, I'm going to quickly ask this, and because I need to take another bite of food, I want to hear in the chat, why did the Irish not have pumpkins? Because it's such a staple. Jack-o'-lanterns are a staple of Halloween. Why didn't they have pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns? Yes, I am giving you guys a pop quiz. I am grading you. Turnips. Trunk or tweet. All right, take another bite and we'll see if anyone's got the right answer. Honey, I'm so angry with you that you knocked over my cup. All right. Wow. Okay, then. I now know who needs to go back to school. Harvest Festival equals lots of gourds equals fun activity. TV account. I think it's because they're not available in Ireland. You're on the right track right there, TV account. Here's the reason why pumpkins were not a part of good old Samhain. They were not part of Halloween until, if anything, if the Irish were very lucky, until the 1500s. And probably definitely not then. The reason is this. Pumpkins are a squash. And it's a squash that wasn't in Europe. It's something from the Americas. And so, fun little fact right there, Halloween, as we know it, is also very, very cross-cultural. It has elements of the New World of the Americas that the Irish and the Celts would never have had. And pumpkins are just fun to carve. So there's that. Then also, for instance, we've got witches and black cats. Witches would not have really been a thing for ancient Samhain. Part of the reason for that is because many of these tribes would have already had magical men, magical women who are just a part of the community. So there's no reason to dress up as them, as ghosts and ghouls, because they're already there in town. Witches became a real staple of Halloween because Christianity has come to despise witchcraft. And so witches are evil, witches are monstrous, and therefore witches are an appropriate monster to dress up as. Black cats? Well, for heaven's sakes, black cats have actually been good luck around the world for millennia. And it's only in certain European societies that black cats became an evil thing. In fact, actually, for the Scottish, black cats are good. Black cat, you want to have a black cat with you on your ship because that's good luck. And if you're a British lady coming across a black cat while you're pregnant, that means good luck for your pregnancy. We can blame the freaking Puritans when they came on over to America to escape religious persecution for really bringing the hate for cats, which had already kind of been debunked after the Black Plague, where it's like, maybe we shouldn't have killed all the cats. Maybe. But these Puritans are like, no, thine black cat doth be evil. It doth be possessed with 9 lives of heresy and heinous crime and sin. Therefore, black cats, familiars of evil godless witches, must be hunted down and killed. Black cats are evil. And no, they're not. There's nothing evil or magical about a black cat. I would love it if black cats were magical, but other than just the magic of awe and tummy rubs, you're not going to get anything there. McGonagall is good kitty. McGonagall is good kitty. She's one of the best kitties. So yeah, Puritans bringing over long outdated ideas about cats and the fears of witches, mingling with New World pumpkins and an ancient Irish festival, and then boom, jack-o'-lanterns, witches, and black cats. Halloween is really, really interesting because the further you dive into it, the more you begin to realize just how many elements from various times and cultures have been stitched into this holiday and how it is presented, how people live it. Hannah says, I now see why cats in media are portrayed as evil. LOL. Yeah, cats have gotten a bad rap, which they don't deserve. Cats can most definitely be super indifferent to you, and they can be mean. But if you treat a cat well, then you've got a friend. You've got a friend in cats. You've got a friend in cats. Meow. So, to move on then here. So, here is a writing challenge for everyone who is here. I want you to come up then with a story idea that doesn't just take place during Halloween, but uses an element of Halloween or its history to help drive the plot or to motivate the character. For instance, and you guys can have a look back and view this because these things are public. I had for this year's Choose Your Own Horror Adventure story, the characters are motivated by trick-or-treating. They want to go and find this treasure trove of candies that have been stolen by the Old Town Bully and hoarded in the loot of 1,000 kids. Yes, I shamelessly ripped off Treasure Planet for that one. And then I've also been doing a cruisy fanfic for Halloween, where the Halloween celebration in hometown is itself part of a curse and a trap. And so if you want to know what's going on there and how Halloween plays into the story, well, there it is. And so what I want you guys to do is I want you to take the time to think about this and put it in the chat if you feel like it. What's a story idea that you can come up with that utilizes an element of Halloween? And it doesn't even need to be set during Halloween. It could be a story idea that takes you back to the times of the Celts and the Romans, or to the Gilded Age, during the time of crazy bonfires. Maybe it's a story about the first real trick or treats. It could be anything like that. So come up with a story idea that uses Halloween, not just for window dressing, not just for flavor, but that's a part of the story that drives the plot or motivates the characters. Mimic, love the Deltarune picture. Oh yeah, this is a great pick. This is a great pick for Halloween and for Deltarune. So to be fair, cats are evil. I have scars to prove it. I do not have a friend in cats. I used to have scars up my forearms from my first cat. They've faded. They've long since faded. But for years, I had the scratch marks from one particular night. We were having a large family dinner, and Tiger, the name of our big orange tabby, he really, really loved corn for whatever reason. Corn was his favorite, and he wanted it. And we had warmed up some corn. We put it down in a bowl. And then he came to eat the corn. We're like, no, get out of the corn. So we then put saran wrap over it to keep it warm and to keep the cat out. The cat then expertly with one claw opened the saran wrap covering and then stuffed his face through to begin munching on the corn. So I grabbed him, hauled him off the table, ran to my sister's room, and then heave-hoed him. I hurled this cat across the room. Like, okay, out! Like, you need to stop eating the corn. And that's when I realized just how mobile cats are in midair. Because as I let go of Tiger, Tiger flipped himself around midair, dug his claws into my forearms, and because I'd already hurled him, you have a massive cat, unimpeded by anything other than gravity, go right through both of my arms. Oh boy, that was a night. Oh, that was painful until sometime the next day. And yeah, those scars stuck with me for a long time. I swear, people back at school, I'm not a cutter. It was my cat. Mimic, I wish I had a cat, but my mom is unfortunately allergic. Oh, that's sad. One of my sisters, she's married to a guy who's allergic to cats, but he takes all kinds of medicine to not because, for one thing, he loves my sister, which is great, and my sister loves and adores her old cat. And so her husband's like, okay, so that way you can keep your cat. I'm just going to load up on meds. But also he himself is like, I love this cat. At this point now, my sister complains that her cat loves her husband more than the cat loves her. And she's like, come on. Don't you know I raised you? And the cat's like, I don't care. Austin, feed me. Oh my gosh, yep, that's crazy. Cat stories. Cat stories galore. All right, I'm going to take another quick bite of foods. But yeah, that right there, that's the Halloween lesson. Won't. I have good stuff. All right, then. All right, so my whole family's allergic to cats, too. So even if we wanted one, oh, no. You'll never get to experience the joy of a cat in your life. I know this is from a long ago, but one of No Evil fanfics, where the cast had a day of the dead party, only for their masks to transform them into dinos due to the story being in Midland, and it had dinos. Okay. I like that idea. And transform based on the Mac. Oh, it had it transformed into. Wait, did they transform into dino skeletons, or because they had dino skeletons there? I'm Omega. I'm now a little bit confused. Boom. All right. So as far as the rest of this little stream goes here, okay, I'm going to torture you guys. I'm going to torture you guys with a little bit right here. This could get the stream taken down. We'll see. All righty. Oh my gosh. Let's see here. And I'll also use this as some quick time to pull up some other stuff. Okay. So, it was this is like 2-3 weeks ago. I tried showing you guys a clip from this movie, and it didn't go over all too well. Because apparently when I was trying to share it through YouTube, you guys couldn't hear the sound. So this time, you should be able to hear it. So allow me to introduce you guys, if you haven't yet been introduced to her, to Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And remember, this is meant to be a kid's movie.
It's me, your favorite ghoul friend, Elvira. Get ready for a creepy new show of supernatural fun, The Ketchup Vampires. Narrated, of course, by me, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Was a creepy, crawling night, and I saw a scary sight. The ketchup vampires were all around, and when I told my friends what I found, they said, "Liar, liar, heads on fire. There's no such thing as a ketchup vampire. You must have had a dream." But I knew what I'd seen. Liar, liar, heads on fire. There's no such thing. I saw ketchup vampires, and they're cool.
All right. I don't know about any of you guys, but this gives me vibes from like back in the day when anime openings were always translated into English. Say that's what comes to mind. This is one of the best parts of the whole movie, the opening number. Scott says, story idea. Your town has a Halloween front yard decorations competition. One family's yard comes to life due to the spirit of Halloween wishing to play a trick, and all the decorations come to life. Scott, you could do the same thing with a Spirit of Halloween store too, for that matter. You know what? One of the things that would be absolutely terrifying is if a Spirit of Halloween store did come to life. There's a lot of really weird, messed up things there in the store. Imagine if the costumes already like tried to possess you. So as you're walking through, all of these costumes start dancing out of their packaging and start chasing you around the store. I'd go for that. You know why? And this you could write that as a story, or you could even make it as a really, really cheesy Halloween, as a really good cheesy Halloween special, and it could be done for cheap. Hollywood, get on this already. All right. I'm going to also introduce you guys to, let's see if I can find it. Okay, I went just a little bit too far. I'm going to introduce you guys to the most epic scene of the whole movie. And I'm going to do it without context, because if I put it into context, it's going to make it really, really stupid. So let's savor the most epic moments of this movie without context.
Now, you bird, and you better believe it.
Yeah,
Not
that's making out and making love.
You belong to me.
Looks like you better. There,
Let's see
I
here.
told you there
It
comes
should
a
be the
time when I
right
get even
spots.
with you better.
Let me go, you big fat pig. Hey, let me go now.
I don't think so.
But you don't think the ketchup vampires got off that?
All right, here we go. Best scene of the
no,
whole
my
movie.
darlings. Back
No
in
context.
Transylvania, the crazy old master was about to make a discovery.
But it's not here. No, we've got to have that book. Without it, the legacy of vampires can't continue.
This animation. Yes.
We'll be finished.
1980s animation at its finest. Sorry for laughing. Oh, no, not at all. Please laugh. There's a lot to laugh at in this movie.
No. It's ended. Now, the blood. It's gone. All the blame will fall on me. And not on you filthy bats. You lollygag around here all day hanging upside down.
Omega, Midland has animated dino skeletons. The cast returned into dinosaurs and had to sumo wrestle in order to undo the transformation. Yes, they had to get in gear, weight, Mawashi and all. That's awesome, I'm Omega. That sounds like a great story.
I'm too old. I just don't have the energy to take on these captured vampires anymore.
Okay, real quick moment right here. When Camille and I did the trope talk, this is an example of a Deus Ex Machina. This thing comes out of nowhere, and there's no explanation for it, and it's going to solve all the problems. What we're being introduced to at this moment is a total Deus Ex Machina, in the worst way possible.
Oh, it's the ruby ring! Dracula's ruby ring! The ring! The ring!
Again, no mention of the ring whatsoever until this point. There's no reason to be scared of this
How
thing.
many times did I hear of it? The nursery rhyme at my mother's knee. Dracula's ring is made of ruby. Dracula's ring is made of gold. The one who wears its life is to be, again made young though he be old. Ah. Yes.
He just flipped off the audience.
Now the power of the ring is on my hand, and I will use its might, so we can again perform the Matura. Just when I thought all was lost. And now, I summon the power of the ring to give me the strength of Dracula. No longer will those captured vampires be dealing with just a doddering old fool. I'm at the very height of my powers, because I wear the ring of Dracula.
All right. Best moment in the whole movie. And now I'm going to ruin it as far as I can ruin it by giving you the context as to what the hey is actually going on here. This is a Deus Ex Machina ring. This came out of nowhere. He sounds like Frieza. And this is a total anime moment. You've already mentioned that this is the ring of Dracula. Who are you talking to? Audience. You will now know that I am the next big villain in this movie, because I wear the ring of Dracula. Did I forget to mention Dracula and the nursery rhyme for Dracula's ring? Ha ha! So, Context for this scene. The vampires of Transylvania want Dracula's book back. Dracula has this spell book that allows him to take the people whose blood he's drunk and turn them into vampires. So they want the book back so they can create a new generation of vampires, of true vampires. So in order to do this, they send a bunch of teenage vampires to go fight the vegetarian teenage vampires in a fight where they throw blood sausage and garlic at each other. Yes, yeah, it's a whole scene, complete with a music video and music montage of them throwing garlic and blood sausage at each other and trying to beat each other up with sausages and cloves of garlic. When the bad guys inevitably lose because this is a kids movie, then this guy's like, "Oh, I have now discovered the ring! Yay!" And then the ring speaks to him and is like, "You must get Vampino," the one of the main characters, one of the vegetarian characters. "You must get him to fall in love. And by doing this, you must steal him away from bland protagonist Bella." And then the rest of this movie, which has about 45 minutes or so to go still on it, is all about trying to impersonate the bland protagonist so that way the vampire will fall in love. Meanwhile, there's a lot of off-screen shenanigans going on with bats banging and lots of kissing, attempted infidelity. This movie gets weird. And the moment that you realize that this scene, which is kind of cool on its own, the moment you put into context and realize this is a Deus Ex Machina ring, which is going to kick off a super awkward forced love triangle, second and third act, and that this was preceded by a giant fight with blood sausages and cloves of garlic. At that point, you realize, oh my gosh, why? Hannah says, "I'm going to cry. This is so silly." It's incredibly silly. Fun thing, you can find this for free on YouTube and watch the whole thing if you want. You can also even watch the second movie, which is actually the prequel that explains how Vampino and Bland Bella met up in the first place and fell in love, which is even more horrible. Omega says the story, it's based on the Battle of Serpent Hill from Aztec mythology. Oh, I don't know that story, I'm Omega. The Battle of Serpent Hill. You'll have to share more of that. That sounds really cool. Yeah, let's see here. Ooh, let me also pull up for presentation. So after being introduced to the catch of vampires, let me introduce you guys to something that is actually way cooler. If it loads, we'll see if it loads. If not, then oh well. Ah, there we go. All right. So, Vampire Hunter D. This is, so I actually intend to do a review of this for Halloween if I get the chance. But again, something you guys can actually find for free on YouTube. This is an incredible anime movie. And I don't care if you don't like anime. This is worth watching. And especially if you like vampire stories, if you like gothic horror, this is pretty much up most people's alleyways. And one of the things that I really, really like about it is that it's not just simply, hey, we're gonna have anime vampires fighting each other, whatnot. This is like Bram Stoker's gothic horror meets steampunk. The aesthetic for this is gorgeous. And the animation does a phenomenal job of bringing a lot of it to life. And the visual storytelling is on another level. there's a lot that's happening in the movie that in some cases feels like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It feels like context is missing. This is a movie that you have to watch to get it. If you just simply have it on in the background as just fun while you go and you do something else, you will miss so many important details. So, like, for instance, if we already kind of back this up a little bit, and we come back to the zoom out, this already right here is incredible foreshadowing of stuff to come. And on top of that, you will notice all of these crosses. This is a world that is plagued by unholy monsters led by vampires. And so people everywhere have crosses to try to ward off all of these monsters that you will meet throughout the movie. And it's such a great little detail, because in a world where vampires reign supreme and humanity is trying to battle them, like most other shows or movies like have it where either the humans try to like sequester themselves in some city where they wall themselves off, or humans are on their last legs, or the humans just happen to have really cool hunters who for whatever reason are able to like really easily manhandle the vampires. But in Vampire Hunter D, you get the sense that all of humanity is united in some way or another with various innovations, battle styles, and relics and weapons to take on the vampires at any given moment. And so just from the visual cue alone, you then realize just how ballsy this opening scene is, with our main antagonist showing up. So that being said, so all of the crosses just getting crushed by this guy's power as he's coming, so that way he doesn't have to deal with these things. Lights go out. Also, one of the coolest things, this will come, and here's another thing, this will come back into play later on the story. Cyberpunk horses. Steampunk cyber tech horses will be a thing throughout this movie, and they're super cool. Hannah says, yeah, that didn't work. Yeah. Now, this vampire is insanely powerful. As he comes for Charlotte. That's such a cool shot right there. Oh man, there's some great anime out there today, but there's something about the 90s. They just had an eye for great detail. In the distant future. Vampires rule the night, but their numbers are dwindling. And this, again, is actually right here. What you're seeing is a visual clue that patches into the very first shot. And the first time that I watched this, I had no idea what I was seeing until later on, and it all then starts coming together. And you're like, holy cow. D. Vampire Hunter D. All right. So, I'll stop this right here before I get well, I'll probably actually am already let me see here. Did I already get copyright struck for this? No. Oh no. Okay. This is coming through for you guys because my internet suddenly went really wonky. So, Hannah, to answer your question, this is Vampire Hunter D. Yeah, so Vampire Hunter D is the name of this particular anime movie, and it is absolutely worth watching. It's really, really good, and especially for anyone who likes a good vampire story, this is a pretty good vampire story. Especially like the build up to actually like confronting some of the vampires, and just the use of technology, the use of background information, and the art style, visual storytelling to give you clues and cues as to what's going on is just wow. It's so good. Like I myself, I really do enjoy the Castlevania series on Netflix. But this right here, like if you were to give me the choice of either watching Castlevania or Vampire Hunter D, I'm choosing Vampire Hunter D because it has such a solid story, and it is in terms of animation and just storytelling is on just a higher level completely. Do they have a TV series and a manga? To my knowledge, there should be the manga. I don't know. I don't think they actually ever had a solid anime series for Vampire Hunter D, but there is another movie. So if you watch this and you want more, there is at least a second movie that you can watch. And I would love for this to get like a really good reboot and be brought back because this would work out so well. But so long as isekai rules the roost, other anime really have to fight. Other genres really have to fight to be noticed and seen in the anime world. Unfortunately, this is also right here a moment in the movie that is just a pure boss move on the part of D, where he is just coming in the sunlight as a half vampire. He's susceptible to the light the same as anyone else. I should say the same as any other vampire, and he is taking it. So he's got on his cloak. He's got on a wide brimmed hat to keep himself covered. Or otherwise, like he's here. He's like, yeah, I'm in the sunlight. Deal with it. And that's one of the reasons why all those guys are freaking out, because this guy's in the sunlight coming at them and just cool as a cucumber. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I don't want to get copyright struck. So far as I know, quickly popping on over here. So far as I know, I am not yet. Let's see here. Going to content. Live. No, I haven't yet been copyright struck, but I am going to do my best to avoid it because that would just suck. Because that would take us down in the middle of the stream. So I shall forbear further with this. But yeah. Again, if you want a really good vampire anime movie, Vampire Hunter D. And for those who want a really bad vampire movie, then you can look up the Ketchup Vampires. All right. So, I mean, mean, that basically brings me to the end of what I had of everything that I had intended for tonight. Because again, sorry, things happen on my end. Things start falling apart. So unfortunately, even though I was working on prepping the stream, it came across a little bit more slapdash and haphazard than I normally would have liked. But with that being said, is there anything that you guys would like to talk about before I pop off to enjoy the rest of my now cold dinner? Anything at all. I'll just have this on as background footage just in case we do end up having a conversation. So again, I do intend to have the retrospective for Murder Drones up tomorrow. That is one of my main goals, and I hope that, and I realized when I was done doing it that once it's been watched by a lot of people, that it kind of deserves at least like an in-person discussion to discuss some of the big things that I've come to realize about this show now that it's completely done. And I've also introduced a couple of people since the finale to Murder Drones, and they've all really enjoyed it, but they've all been like, but it feels like there's something missing or a number of things missing. It made me realize that, Liam did a phenomenal job with the show, but there are some really big issues that need to be addressed. And I kind of start touching on that in the retrospective. And I realized there should probably be some discussions, further discussions on Murder Drones to really tap into what the hey was happened with the production of this story and what's novice authors and especially aspiring showrunners can really learn from the do's and don'ts of Liam Vickers. TV account, I guess, what are your views on Scary Story Time with Liam? TV account, I don't have an opinion on Scary Story Time with Liam. So unfortunately, I can't give it to you. If I did, I would. I absolutely would. But I am not going to lie and come up with something when I don't know it well enough to have an opinion. So, sorry. I said, not really. I'm going to go write a Halloween horror short story, then draw for the rest of the night. Fantastic. I like that. I like the idea of a good Halloween short story and then some drawing. I've got video editing and then writing to do for the nights. Say, I am now in endgame territory with one of my books. So close, and I want to get it done before Christmas because I really want to be able to just enjoy Christmas this year and not have a whole lot to work on. I said that last Christmas, and then I ended up having so much to do for Christmas, creative wise. So I wanted to avoid that this year. Well, then, if there's really not a whole lot that people want to talk about, one thing that I do want to kind of throw on out here, and this will be actually reiterated over at Discord most likely. But for November, since it's NaNoWriMo, for anyone who is interested in participating in NaNoWriMo, if you'd like to have reminders and encouragement, let us know, and we can put together like little posts and little videos to help encourage anyone who is participating in National Write a Novel Month. And also, for anyone who might be interested, I'm already going to throw this idea on out there. And if you guys like this, you can put it into the chat. I've been toying around with the idea of doing a writer's roulette in preparation for Christmas time, where we'll do basically a spoof Hallmark movie. So if you're interested in doing that, a writer's roulette where we will do a spoof Hallmark movie, let us know, and we'll see about getting that going, because we'll have to do it next month in order to have it ready for Christmas time, and that'll be fun. I'm Omega. What is NaNoWriMo? NaNoWriMo is National Write a Novel Month. So the challenge is that within 30 days to write a novel. Now then, for those of you who are all like, well, how do you know that you've written a novel? A novel length is more than 40,000 words. A novella is 40,000 words. I mean, nowadays, thanks to people like Brandon Sanderson who can't keep a story normally to 40,000 words, a novella can now be anywhere between 40,000 to 50,000 words. But ultimately, if you want to be really safe, you then go 50,000 words minimum. Now, that's a lot of words. 50,000 words minimum is a lot. But it can be done. Is if you can hold yourself to doing anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 words a day during the month of November, congratulations, you will have written a novel, or at least a novel length by the end of that month. And ultimately, it's just a month to get you thinking about the stories that you want to write, to encourage you to write. Most people don't finish their stories in November. Instead, it is a time to encourage authors to get off their duffs, to start writing, start creating, and see how far they go. Because a lot of people get a story idea in their heads, they start writing a little bit of it, and then they check out. And so NaNoWriMo is a whole month dedicated to write. Other authors are going to try to support you, to give you motivation, to give you insight and whatnot, so that way you can do the best that you can with the story that you've got, or the story that you've got in mind. And hopefully you make fantastic progress. If you're able to write 40,000 to 50,000 words within that month, fantastic. That is more than what most people end up being able to write given any month or even given a year. And so, like, I think it's really cool, especially if someone is able to really participate and stick to it. It's incredible what you're able to do in 30 days. Hannah asks, can making a comic also include as well? Hannah, I will say yes, because you're creating, you're writing, you're making something. So I would include a comic in there as well. I think that most people would not mind that, because again, NaNoWriMo is just about getting out there, being creative, tackling your story head on, and supporting other creators as they write. TUCAN says, I thought NaNoWriMo was canceled. Well, let's have a quick look. We can always check. I can always trust Google, right? Yeah. Oh my, the NaNoWriMo controversy. So there's the actual nonprofit organization that champions the idea. If we actually, I now want to check out this whole controversy. What the heck is going on here? Inside the AI controversy. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's juicy. Oh, that is so juicy right there. Okay, then. So the nonprofit organization, which has championed NaNoWriMo, the month and the challenge, they said, when people were like, well, what if I use AI to write my story? And they said, oh yeah. They basically gave a stamp of approval to it, to which other more serious authors were all like, no, that's not writing. AI writing is not real writing. And I have to absolutely agree with that. Because if you type in a prompt and then have an engine crank out your story for you, the only thing that you wrote was the prompt and whatever outline you gave the engine. You did not write the story. Writing the story is you actually getting into the weeds with your outlines, with your ideas, and creating in the moment. And I actually had this discussion just yesterday, that when it comes to the use of AI and writing, to come back to the analogy from Trope Talk about being a chef, how a good writer is a good chef. You know the different ingredients that are at your disposal, and you use them in various combinations to create a new tasty dish. It's the same thing with writing. When you know what you're doing, when you know what you're working with as a writer, you can take all kinds of ideas and inspiration and bring them together to tell a very fun and unique story that you created in the moment with your own imagination. If you have inspiration, but you hand off that inspiration and ideas to an AI engine, that AI engine can only do what you've told it to do by stealing other people's work. And so, if I were to take someone who wrote a novel using an AI engine, and I were to put them with me into the same room, and I say, okay, then, without using AI, we will spend the entire day here writing 4,000 to 5,000 words as a part of a novel, not a short story. You and I are writing our own novels independently. And today you have to hit 4,000 to 5,000 words. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. It's a stretch, but it can be done. A writer who is able to act like a chef could do it. It'd be hard, but they can do it. Someone who relies on AI could never do that, other than just smashing their keyboard and hitting that word count. In which case, it's all gobbledygook. None of it would make any sense, and everything would be misspelled. There would be no story there because they lack the skill to do it. So I can understand then the controversy behind NaNoWriMo's acceptance of AI generated stories. I think they got ChatGTP confused with spelling assistant or autocorrect. Which, yes, there are AI programs that act like spelling assist and your typical autocorrect, and those are perfectly fine to use. In fact, actually, like as far as like being able to check grammar and being able to check spelling, I can see where AI can be really helpful in that regard. But when it comes to writing your story, absolutely not. And I even had this discussion where I said I would still also myself and with editors read through my story. I would never hand it over to ChatGTP to figure stuff out. And the reason for that is because ChatGTP isn't inventive. It's not going to be struck with some inspiration about, hey, my character needs to do this. And so, like, for example, when I was writing my very first novel, Knights of Hallicrues, I had two characters who came into being who were not part of my original plan or outline, not in the slightest. And as I was writing one chapter, I realized this is boring. I'm like, yeah, the main character is learning how to use his powers and he's making friends along the way, but this is just kind of boring. What am I doing with this? Like, he needs more people that he can play off of. And he especially needs people who are his age. Because otherwise he's a teenager in another world full of adults and monsters. And that doesn't feel appealing to a teenage audience. And so I then came up on the spot, no planning beyond that realization, to come up with two female characters, Tori, a Brazilian girl, and Anessa, a girl from Japan. And put them into the story, and they became an absolute blast to write. ChatGTP would never have come up with those characters. ChatGTP, based on prompts, could suggest maybe you should add in more teenage characters, but it would never have figured out to write Tori and Nessa, or what those characters would be like, or what their story arcs would be like throughout the 6 books of the series. That came about because the author took the time to go through his own work, being me. No AI tool could ever figure that stuff out. And so that's a conversation that needs to be had. And there's too many people who are proponents of AI who don't understand that, because they're more obsessed with what they can do with a cool tool than realizing that the coolest tool that they have is their own brain. And I have known way too many engineers and computer programmers in that line of thinking it grates on my nerves, because they're more interested in what they can do rather than what they should do. And all I can think of is the quote from Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, that your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they never stopped to ask themselves whether they should. And that's me and AI. As Isa says right here, AI is a tool. If you use it right, it can be helpful. But if you leave everything to the AI, you get uninspired, cliche, lazy, and boring trash. Yes, amen. And the funniest thing to me, and this just also ticks me off, is how many people out there are like, you know what? Like, Rings of Power feels like it was written by AI. But then, almost in the same breath, they'll then talk about how, and then when we hand over this show or this movie to AI, it'll be written so well. I'm like, do you guys not hear what is coming out of your own mouths? Like, if one show is bad because AI supposedly wrote it, which it didn't happen, those were honestly awful writers who wrote Rings of Power. If you trust AI to do better, it's not. Because it can't do better than what other people can do, which is one of the reasons why AI programmers are doing their absolute best to steal other people's work, because they themselves are absolutely unimaginative. Okay, ran over. So, with that rant being done and said, I think now is a good time to leave off. So I hope that all of you guys have a fantastic evening, day, morning, wherever you are. And I hope that if you are going to celebrate Halloween this year, that you have a fantastic Halloween. If you don't celebrate Halloween, that's absolutely fine. Hope that you enjoy the rest of Spooky Month. And if you're going to be writing tonight, like ISO is, good luck with your writing. Hope everything goes well. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for being here with us. And tschüss.